Greetings, Grace Covenant, on this Friday in February. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story. It will be my theme in glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. That hymn has made its way into the Glory to God hymnal. It comes to us from a more gospel tradition, a more evangelical tradition, a tradition that I grew up in, and I know many of you may have also grown up in that tradition, singing that song. I'm certainly thrilled that it's a part of our repertoire, but I also acknowledge that when I sing that, there is some nostalgia that I have to embrace. It calls for some really good memories and some really painful memories about the church. And yet the song itself, I think, has a message that rings true if we will listen to it. And number one is, we are the hands and feet of Christ. We are speaking, we are telling, we are proclaiming. It is our job to tell the story. And the story is of Jesus' love. That's the simple message of this song, reminding us that we have a didactic responsibility to teach and tell and live the story of Christ's love in this world. And yet, I got that message of sharing Christ's love in a church that held to an awful lot of legalism, an awful lot of control, an awful lot of manipulation, an awful lot of anger and hate. Sometimes I didn't always see the love of Christ in the way the church behaved. And this week I was reminded of that sense of legalism that we sometimes see in the church, even today, in the Catholic Church with their treatment of this priest in Arizona who was reprimanded because they held him to a legalistic standard of not exactly speaking the words of their baptismal liturgy. And thus, they have now nullified almost, I think last I read was like 16,000 baptisms over the course of this priest ministry. And to me, that seems unfathomable, to be that legalistic about a twist of phrase or a word in a liturgy. And not to allow space for grace and love. But I grew up in a tradition that sort of held to those kinds of things. And so it stirs that up in me, and it may or may not do that for some of you as well. Jesus himself, who was the Word, came to embody and live the Word in the world, and he challenged the legalism of his day. He healed on the Sabbath. He picked grain and ate on the Sabbath, and the authorities didn't like it. The authorities had put things in order and kept the letter of the law so that they could be righteous and above the people, and also to control the people. And we still to this day have people in religious and political circles using the law to subjugate women and people of color, LGBTQIA. And we as a church are continuing to speak out against that and to say, no, it is time to interpret the spirit of the law as Jesus came to fulfill the law. Jesus fulfilled the law and broke it. So we have to sort of remember that. And we are called to be like Christ. And we are called to share Christ's love. And I believe that means that we do that in a way that embraces grace. Whenever we are challenged with legalism, I think that we should be open to understanding how grace works. And one of the things that really resonates for me in that, when I go down a rabbit hole in YouTube, I found myself in many places. And one is a court TV show that I believe is based out of Providence, Rhode Island, and it's called Caught in Providence. And it's this judge. And people come to him with their violations, many of them traffic violations, civic violations, things that have not happened, the things that they need to correct. They've been called in front of the judge, and they are pleading their case. And in every instance, I see this wonderful gentleman interpreting the spirit of the law, allowing people to speak their truth, to speak their challenges, to share their stories. And the judge always understands and interprets the law in a way that has the most grace possible. And not this rigid legalism that would throw people in jail because they violated the law. But he takes everything into account. And I believe that's a lot like the God that we know and that we work and that we serve and that we work to bring justice into the world. I believe that God is the God who says, enough of the legalism, love is what reigns, and love is what I brought Christ into the world to model and to show, and love is what I'm calling you to do. So we are called to love, just as Christ did, and we're called to share that story, that wonderful old story that should still be ringing true today. Remember, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as yourself. So let us love and let us proclaim love and the story of Christ and do away with legalism as we continue to be the hands and feet of Christ in this world. Thanks be to God, Grace Covenant.